I watched my funeral from the back row. Jack awoke with a start, choking on something soft and damp. At first, he thought it was a dream, a nightmare of being buried alive. But then he felt the weight of the earth crushing his chest. Dirt was under his fingernails. His heart was pounding in his ears. Panic seized him as he realized he really was buried alive. Frantic, he clawed at the mound above him, his hands slick with mud. His lungs burned for air, each breath a rasping cry. The weight of the dirt pressing against him seemed to grow heavier by the second, stealing away his strength, suffocating him. He struggled, clawing, scratching, desperate to break free. And slowly, miraculously, he did. Gasping for breath, he pushed himself up onto the surface. Blinking away the suffocating darkness, he found himself in a graveyard shrouded in mist. As the first pale fingers of dawn touched the horizon, he noticed a lone hearse pulling away, its taillights disappearing into the distance. In the distance, he could hear the faint toll of church bells. With a shaking hand, Jack looked down at himself. His clothes were torn and caked in mud, but what truly caught his attention was the fresh mound of dirt on his chest, shaped like a coffin. Had he been buried? Why? But more importantly, how? As the realization of his escape from death dawned on him, a new terror gripped him. What if it wasn't supposed to end there? What if whoever had buried him was watching, waiting for him to return? The sound of his own footsteps echoed in his ears, bouncing off the cold, hard tombstones, each step taking him deeper into the labyrinth of the cemetery. Ahead, through the skeletal branches of gnarled trees, he saw the chapel. He stumbled toward it, his clothes dripping mead onto the path, his face pale and drawn. Reaching the door, he peered through the stained glass windows, momentarily blinded by the vibrant colors. As his eyes adjusted to the dim light filtering through the colored glass windows, he noticed an easel holding a recent photograph. His breath caught in his throat. It was him. The photo must have been taken the day before. Next to it, a book lay open, its pages filled with elegant script. He walked closer, peering at the gilded lettering. The words, "Our beloved Jack," mocked him with their loving sentiment. What was going on? Was this meant to be his funeral? Fear tightened its grip around his heart, squeezing the breath from his lungs. Was he dead? Had he come back to watch his own funeral? Confused and terrified, he tried to call out, but his voice was swallowed by the thick silence of the chapel. There was no response. No one acknowledged his presence. They continued to whisper and murmur, their voices echoing strangely in his ears. Jack felt a hand on his shoulder and jumped, whirling around to face the intruder. It was a woman. Her face was pale, her eyes red-rimmed. But what shocked him most was the familiarity of her features. Then he realized with dawning horror. It was his wife, her touch cold like ice. She recoiled as if burned, her eyes wide with surprise and fear. For a moment, they just stared at each other. Jack opened his mouth to speak, but no sound came out. His wife took a step back, knocking over a nearby chair. The sound echoed in the hushed room, drawing curious glances. She shook her head, her lips moving soundlessly. Her eyes, filled with a strange mixture of sorrow and terror, seemed to plead with him. Was this real or some ghastly hallucination? Before Jack could process his thoughts, his wife hurried away, disappearing into the crowd of mourners. He watched her go, his confusion turning to icy dread. Then he turned back to the easel. On the page beside his photograph, he saw his name written in flowing letters. It was a program. The service had begun. He wanted to scream, to make them hear him, but his voice refused to cooperate. Trembling, he reached out to touch the photograph. The image of his smiling face mocked him from beneath the glass. Suddenly, the silence shattered. All eyes turned towards the front of the chapel. In unison, they began to rise from their seats. A tall man in black robes stood at the front of the chapel. His back was to Jack, the priest. Jack realized with a jolt. The priest turned, his face grave, his eyes sad. He held a crucifix aloft. "My brothers and sisters," his voice boomed, echoing strangely in the vast space. "We gather here today to mourn the passing of our beloved Jack, a man who touched all our lives deeply." The priest paused, and Jack felt a chill creep up his spine. "He was a kind and gentle soul," the priest continued, his gaze sweeping over the congregation, "whose absence will be felt deeply by us all." The word absence struck Jack like a physical blow. He wasn't dead. How could they be mourning his absence when he was standing right there? Desperate to be seen, he stepped forward, his foot cracking a loose stone beneath it. But the mourners remained oblivious, their eyes downcast, their faces etched with grief. The priest began the eulogy, his words a blur to Jack. He couldn't comprehend the priest's words. All he saw was the empty coffin at the front, the one that should have held his body, the one that didn't. A sob escaped his lips, but it was lost in the sea of sniffles and whispers. People were filing past him, their gazes fixed ahead. Yet none of them acknowledged his presence. It was as if he were invisible, a ghost haunting his own funeral. He wanted to reach out, to touch someone, to shake them and scream, "I'm here." But his hand passed through the mourners as if they were phantoms. He was alone in a crowd, unseen, unheard. Suddenly, he spotted his wife again. She was standing by the coffin, her hand resting on its polished surface. He called out to her, hoping she would turn, see him, recognize him. But his voice died in his throat. She didn't react. He approached her, each step heavy with dread. He reached out to touch her trembling shoulder, willing her to acknowledge him. But the moment his fingers brushed her skin, she jerked away as if burned. Her eyes, wide with terror, darted around the chapel, searching, pleading. He wanted to speak, to tell her it was him, but no sound came out. His wife fell to her knees beside the coffin, burying her face in her hands. Jack sank to his knees beside her, reaching out, wanting to comfort her, to tell her he was alive. Yet he knew, with a sinking heart, that she couldn't see him, couldn't hear him. The priest's voice boomed, shattering the quiet. "In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit," the words echoed, "let us commit the body of our beloved Jack to the grave." As the words left his lips, something shifted in the air. The gaslights flickered, casting grotesque shadows on the chapel walls. The candles on the coffin's headrest guttered out, plunging the area into darkness. A whispering voice cut through the stunned silence. "Jack, Jack," they echoed through the pews, growing louder. More voices joined in, rising in a chilling crescendo. "Jack, Jack, Jack." They were chanting his name now, their voices weaving together into a horrifying harmony. Jack tried to stand, to escape the cacophony, but his legs refused to move. He looked down at his hands, which seemed oddly translucent. A cold dread seeped into his bones. As he watched in horror, his reflection vanished from the brass plaque in front of him. Then he felt it. His life force draining away, he collapsed onto the cold stone floor. And as the chanting swelled to a deafening roar, everything went black. A spectral version of Jack materialized at the altar. His eyes were hollow, devoid of any warmth or light. His lips moved, forming words that echoed with a chilling emptiness. "You were supposed to sleep forever," he whispered, his voice a hollow echo. The chapel walls cracked, revealing an abyss filled with countless graves. The chanting reached a fever pitch as the floor beneath Jack's feet gave way. He fell, tumbling down into the darkness. He lunged for the door, scrabbling at the rough wood, but it was too late. The door had been bricked up. Dust and dirt poured in, sealing his fate. And as the chanting grew louder, drowning out his screams, Jack was swallowed by the darkness. The only sound that remained was the chilling echo. Welcome back. Until next time, stay safe and keep an eye on those coffins. You never know when they might come in handy.